Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of the Mind Setting Podcast. I'm your host Gaurav Tang. And before we start, if you have not done yet, then please hit that subscribe button and give your like to this episode. This way, you can help to share this podcast with more people who might need to listen it. Anyways, so let's dive into today's episode. So, while researching on all or nothing thinking, which I was also facing myself, I read an explanation in a psychological term. It says it is a type of cognitive distortion in which a person, instead of being able to accurately assess a situation, especially a somewhat negative one, sees things in terms that are much more stark. So, in simple words, you are just seeing the things much more bigger than they actually are. It's thinking in extremes. Sometimes is either the best or the worst, everything or nothing, never or forever. As I read about it, I realized how many times I exercise it and don't recognize it as something that I need to work upon. So before we go into how to deal with it, let's have few examples of all or nothing thinking. Listen to these sentences and notice how casually extreme words have been used there. I will never be successful. All of my efforts were useless. I'm not good at anything. I always mess things up. Everything is going wrong. No one wants to talk to me. There are no good people anymore. We know these words aren't entirely true. So a problem exists, but these words maximize them to the point that it seems like there is no solution in sight. Let's learn how we can overcome this thinking pattern. So here are my tips. Number one, consciously avoid absolute words. What does that mean? What I think is all or nothing thinking is rigid and puts ourselves into a box, inside a box. Whereas in life, rarely anything is ever just one absolute thing. There are nuances, layers, and reasons that we might not be aware of all the times. So words like always, never, can't, everything, everyone, no one, nothing, either or, etc. make things harder for us. Even if they sound harmless and unintentionally severe, they become the language that our mind speaks. And it's clearly not good to think that we will never get a job if we are unable to find a good one or got rejected for few, or any other time that something doesn't work out for us. So be careful about the words you say because you are listening. Number two, don't spread a phase to your entire life. It is really important to have the awareness that problems and missed opportunities don't define your whole life, no matter how many times they have happened and for how long. I don't mean to be insensitive at all. I was until a couple of weeks ago going through one of the toughest time in my life in terms of my mental health, and it felt never ending. Look at the word I just used there, never ending. But it's ending. I can sense it, or at least improving, It takes a lot of strength to make it through tough times, but they pass. The problem that all or nothing thinking causes here is that it can make us think that life will always be this way, that we will never make it out of it, that maybe it's not even worth living after all. But remember, hard times don't define your life. Similarly, 100% type situations rarely exist. Even the decision that is the best want to take at a certain time is not going to be perfect. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take it, right? Number 3, ask what went right. A lot of the time we hear people to say that when we face a failure, to ask ourselves what went wrong. But here, you should ask what went right. See, one of the things important for a good life is balance. There are pros and cons in situations. There are multiple perspectives, as all or nothing thinking makes us focus on one or a few things that didn't work out and expand them over to the whole situation. We feel that nothing went well at all, as if there wasn't one nice thing in our day, as if all we did was wrong, as if there was nothing that we learned. But that is not true. We are so unforgiving for our mistakes and so unappreciative of the number of small and big things that we do right every single day. When I was creating this podcast in earlier days, I made a few mistakes that have ruined all of my work in recording for the podcast. It seems to me that my time and effort had been wasted, that it was all for nothing, and that's what I said to myself. But that wasn't the whole truth. It solely was disappointing that I didn't take the right steps, but I also had a lot of fun creating those podcast episodes. I got to spend time with myself, which helped me thinking better for the content. I started meditating to help me focus on things. I grew a lot in confidence in creating the episodes. I learned about few of my basic mistakes, and above all, I learned a lot. So the episodes that I made later were much better than the ones before, and I'm sure that the previous ones wouldn't have had the impact that they did on the thousands of people that listened to them. So even when it was disheartening and I was sad, there were a lot of things that went right, and I didn't have an awareness to be grateful for them. So even in the worst of days, hold on to those little moments and attempts that go right for you. There are many ways that you are doing great in life: surviving through tough times, applying for jobs, sitting for tests, drinking water after you have cried, making yourself a meal, taking deep breaths, and so many more little things that deserve your appreciation. So these are my 3 tips to help you overcoming all or nothing thinking. And lastly, let us say some words of compassion for ourselves together. You can repeat after me. I appreciate myself of the many things that I do well in my life. I appreciate myself for spending time learning how to overcome all or nothing thinking. I will be compassionate towards myself when I face troubling circumstances. I will believe in chances even when some don't work out. I will believe in hope. I will use language consciously. At all times, I will respect and value my life. I hope that helped you. Wishing you beautiful moments in your life. Take care.